Oh, hello, hang on, sliding across the room. Hello, my name's Andy Strong. Welcome back to the Fundamentally Fit podcast. I am Andy Strong. I am your host, and a good morning, good afternoon, or a good evening to wherever it is that you are listening to this podcast. Let's readjust this mic. I've got my snowball completely around the wrong way. I've got my plative popper is falling off. Right, okay, I'm here. I'm in the room. I am ready to go. Are you fired up? Because we have got some interesting topics today. Google, for want of a better word, has been pissing people off. So we're going to be talking about it. People have been getting their cupcakes in a twist. They're getting very agitated with Google, and we are going to explore why. We're going to explore the ins and outs. Should people be getting agitated with Google? Are they doing a good thing? And we're going to be talking about that. We're also going to be talking very briefly about the Cabbage Patch 10K, Cabbage Patch 10 miler. I got beaten by one of my clients. Yes. We're going to be talking about that very briefly. And then our main topic for today is, if you can see the thumbnail for this week's podcast, massive hand with a mobile phone. Samsung, other brands are available. But yes, we are going to be talking about apps. We're going to be talking about health fitness apps. We're going to be talking about some of the ones I use in my clients, some of the ones I use in my own training, and a few of the ones that are out there right now that are really popular. So it should be quite an interesting podcast. A few different things, few interesting things came up in my searches. I'm going to share those with you today. But to begin with, let's jump in. We're going to be talking about the Cabbage Patch 10 miler. I nearly said 10K again. So, Cabbage Patch 10 miler, based in Twickenham. Love this race. Really, really good. It's one of the classics. Proper running club race, but it's grown. It's a really, really big race. You rock up in Twickenham. Everybody piles into the Starbucks. I don't know where everyone else comes from, but that Starbucks is rammed. Everybody piles into Starbucks. You kind of filter out at the start of the race. They put you in this little side road that kind of goes down towards the river. And then marshals come out, they stop the traffic, they kind of wheel everybody out, start the race, guy pours flour across the road, and off you go. You head out, partly along the river, down towards Kingston Bridge, hook a left over Kingston Bridge, come back down the other side of the river, trees all turning brown, weather was really quite humid, to be honest, and then you kind of weave your way along the river, up through the houses, until you come to Richmond, then you go over Richmond Bridge, hook a left at the other side, and then you come back into Twickenham. 10 miles, really good, really good race, one of my favourite ones locally since we moved. Now, we had a lot of friends up. We had a lot of friends up from the Tough Fitty Tri Club, which was awesome. Really good to catch up with everybody. And they came up the night before. A lot of them came around for dinner, which was really cool. My friend Mickey bought the biggest carrot cake you've ever seen in the world, which was amazing. She knows that I have issues with carrot cake, i.e. I have to eat them, so that was really cool. Managed to get rid of most of it at dinner, and left between the 9 of us, not just me. But we managed to leave just enough, so there was a slice for me and Kirsty post race, so that was cool. So we all turned up to the race, 9 of us in total. And one of the chaps that was racing, guy named Stu. Hey Stu, if you're listening to this, Stu used to come along to my circuits class a few years ago, and I hope Stu won't mind me saying, but Stu was not into his fitness and his health at that point. Hadn't kind of found a way to get into fitness at that point, and circuits for him was something that was brand new. I think he found it quite tough, but he absolutely got stuck in, and he did really, really well. And over the course of the sessions, his fitness came up. He got really good. He got really motivated. And then I moved away, and I've up to Walton, and I've not seen him since. Still keep in touch with his dad because he's part of the club. And then more recently, Stu has got into running with the club, which is really, really good. So Stu came along looking a hell of a lot leaner, taller, fitter, healthier, happier than when he first came to that circuits club. So that is a really, really nice thing to see. So well done, Stu. Really good stuff. And then the race starts, and it's kind of I got a bit of a stick before, so apparently according to one of my friends, it was a grudge match between me and Stu, although not that we've ever raced before, but apparently according to our friend Glenn, it was a grudge match. So we set off, and I've got Stu pegged at kind of catching distance up until about mile 5. His pace is really consistent, really, really good. Me thinking to myself, see how he goes. So I'm not going to go off too quick. And then after mile 5, he starts to pull away from me. The gap gets bigger and bigger. My legs get heavier and heavier. And I just couldn't catch him. And he managed to put, I think by the finish, he put about 3 minutes into me. So I reckon I had him pegged about 30 seconds, maybe 45 seconds up until mile 5, maybe mile 5.5, and couldn't quite catch him. I still managed to knock 8 minutes off last year's time, so I was very, very happy with that. But to Stu, you've beat the trainer. I'm super impressed. I'm super proud of you, super pleased for you. It is possibly the best way to get beaten, and it is really, really nice to see you doing so well. All I can say is that Glenn was right. It is now officially a grudge match, and we're going to be having a rematch at Edinburgh Marathon next year. So good luck. Really, really good stuff. Great to see you. Great to see you doing so well, and very, very talented young runner there. Definitely one to watch. Right. Okay, that's the Cabbage Patch 10 miler. We're now going to be moving on to good old Google, everybody's favourite search engine. Google had a bit of a misstep. Google has been annoying people. Google has been throwing people's cupcakes effectively back in their faces. Google caused outrage this week. Well, not so much this week. It kind of came to the boil this week. Google announced that it is going to be removing its cupcake counter from Google Maps. So Google has added in what was a cupcake counter. It was various other things, but cupcakes was one of them. And basically, it would do a few things. It would, when you wanted to go somewhere, it would suggest that you walked, and if you walked to that location, you would burn X amount of calories. It would also tell you if you had done it that if you did something, you've burnt, say, I don't know, 130 calories. That's one mini cupcake. And while seemingly harmless, seemingly helpful, the internet, with all its ferocity and rage, did not like it. It did not like being told how many cupcakes it burnt off. It did not like being told how many calories it would burn if it walked to its chosen location rather than drove. And it's caused a lot of upset for a lot of people. So we're kind of joking about this. There's a few serious issues here in both directions, interestingly. So I've had a look at some of the comments that were kind of posted about this, and people genuinely were very upset, and it's led Google to apologise, but decide to remove this feature as of, I believe it was yesterday, which was the 17th of October. So some of the issues around this, some people didn't like being told how many calories they've burnt, or being told how many cupcakes they'd kind of burnt off. They found it offensive. They found it a little bit not demeaning, but patronising was the word that was used quite often. And I can kind of see that a little bit. You had other people who quite liked it because it gave them a little bit of a reflection of what distances and calories burnt actually look like. So they found that was quite a useful insight to have. And they were a bit disappointed to be losing it because other people were unhappy. They'd rather it was a function you could switch off. But there were some other things that were raised as well. Largely probably quite inaccurate, because unless you know somebody's height, age, body weight, it's difficult to kind of estimate how many calories are being burnt. So unless that's being done by all of the other information that Google squirrels away about us, so it actually knows how much you weigh, how tall you are, and how old you are. So let's not rule that one out. Google's watching. Oh my God, Google's probably listening to this podcast. If it is, Google, if you are listening to this podcast, could you bump me up a little bit at iTunes? Because that would be awesome. Thank you. Just give me a little nudge. And maybe if you could stick Fundamentally Fit at the top of all Google searches for fitness in Surrey, that would be amazing. So if you are listening, that's awesome. But it's possible Google is listening, as I'm sure many of, and actually a great example of this, Google is listening. So when I opened Google Maps on Sunday, it had uploaded the route into Google Maps for the Cabbage Patch 10 miler, and it did this in Geneva, and it did this for the San Ramon Rocky Ridge Trail Half Marathon. It must scan your emails or scan your text messages or does something, but it knows when you're doing these things, and it actually populates the routes into your map. But yes, Google is definitely listening. There's no doubt about that. One of the points that was actually raised by somebody was that they didn't like that they were effectively shaming people. So they were shaming people that if they didn't walk, then they weren't going to burn these calories, or that if they did walk, they'd only burn a certain amount of calories. They felt people were being shamed into walking, which we'll come back to in a moment. There's also another interesting one that was raised that they felt it could be a trigger for people with eating disorders, and actually knowing how many calories you burnt if you walked or how many calories you burn if you did walk could have some really negative effects on people as well. And the latter of those two is the one I'm more interested in. So that's an interesting topic, and I don't know how you kind of censor that for the individual, because that's a real difficult one, because there's lots of things for somebody in that situation where they could be triggered by lots of different things. But I can certainly see the point with it. I can see the benefit of having a function to switch it off. But that's a really, really difficult one, and I can understand why people who maybe have loved ones in that situation maybe don't like this, who worry about obviously anything that puts that individual into that kind of situation. In terms of the shaming, I think there's a real kind of fine line with this one. Me personally, and you might feel completely different. That's totally cool. That's totally fine. But me personally, I don't feel this came under shaming people to do things, or that it's shaming people that they've only burnt off X amount of calories and that's a cupcake. I feel that as a health and fitness practitioner, we're not fit enough. We're not active enough as a nation. We don't walk enough. And actually, if this encourages more people to walk, that's a good thing in my mind. If people feel shamed to walk, but it gets them walking and they feel better, do you know what? I'm all right with that to a point, because actually most people I see don't walk enough. They don't do enough exercise, and their diet is not healthy enough to put them into a healthy position for the future. And so that's a difficult one to say it shames people, because as a nation we're not healthy enough, we're not fit enough. Look at the NHS. I mean, I think it's something like 10% of the NHS budget goes on treating diabetes, which I think is only around 6% of the population actually have type 2 diabetes. So 10% treating 6%, and actually that is a condition that's largely down to lifestyle and our food choices. So yeah, there might be a touch of shame in it, but I don't think we should go down the shaming route with this one. I think actually anything that encourages people to walk more, be more active, be more mindful, be a little bit more educated is a really good thing. Now, you can have a really strong argument as to whether or not a Google app actually telling you how many calories, how many cupcakes you've burnt is really helpful, in terms of it's not really going to be that accurate, because it's not going to have enough information unless, although we're joking, it genuinely has been listening and knows the answers to that. But you're not going to know that it knows that unless it tells you that it's listening, and it's never going to do that. So we can go round and round and round and round. I think there's some weight to the argument that it could be a trigger for people with eating disorders, and that's a really interesting one. I'm not really sure how you tackle that, because you can't censor the whole population for that reason, but it is a genuine and legitimate concern. In any case, Google has now taken this application, or this part of its application, off, so it shouldn't be there anymore. Whether it's going to come back in a new form, maybe they're going to be measuring you against I don't know, cupcakes or gin and tonics or something. Next time it's going to be something else, I don't know, but that is Google, and they've been agitating people. But I would really genuinely love your feedback on this, so get over to Fundamentally Fit Facebook page. You'll find the podcast will be on there, and just pop in the bottom, tell us what your thoughts are on the application with Google. Do you think it's shaming? Do you think it's patronizing? Do you think it's helpful? Did it encourage you to walk more? Did you like knowing roughly how many calories you'd burnt? Did you think that this is something that we don't need to do, or do you think that Google should just stick to what it's good at, and maybe not go poking its nose into your health and how far you're actually walking? But let us know. Right, okay, that's 2 down. We've got 1 to go. We're on to the main topic. So apps, as I'm sure you are aware, we're a very, very technical issue today, or technical podcast today. Apps are super, super popular. You didn't need to come to my podcast to know that, by the way. You didn't need to come and listen to my podcast to know that apps are technical, and that they're really cool and they've been around for a while. But what we are going to be talking about is some of the popular health and fitness apps that are out there right now. Some of the ones that I use with my clients, some of the ones I use myself, and some of the ones that were surprising finds when I was doing my research on this. So we're going to break this down to 3 categories. We're going to do food first, we're going to do fitness second, and then we're going to do performance last, or third, whichever you prefer, or C. Right, okay. So we're going to kick off with a big hitter, the one everybody knows, MyFitnessPal. MyFitnessPal on Android at the moment, 50 million downloads, super popular. It's the one that most people know. Recently got bought out by Under Armour as well to expand their side of their health and fitness. So a lot of companies are kind of trying to diversify and get into the health space in a bigger way rather than just the brands. They want their brands associated. Lululemon particularly, very good at this. They have kind of weaved their self together with yoga and the yoga community, and that just happens to mean that, hey, guess what? You should probably come and buy our £200 yoga pants. And so they've done that a really clever job of doing that. MyFitnessPal, Under Armour doing the same thing, but I digress. So MyFitnessPal, 50 million downloads. This is the one most people know. I'm sure most of you have tried this, and if you haven't, it is a food tracking application. It's got a massive database. You can use this online or on your phone as an application as well. Free to download. There are premium versions. I personally wouldn't bother. But there are premium versions available which are optional, but you have great functionality in the free version. Okay, really important. I use this with probably 95% of my clients. Some start with paper food diaries because they find that a little bit easier, but I try to get them all onto MyFitnessPal because it's just so simple. Basically what you do is you track your food with it. You go on there and you go, okay, I want to track my breakfast. I've had toast and a banana and a cup of tea, and you basically pop in toast, banana, cup of tea, and then it searches through the database. Everything with the big old green tick has been verified. They're the ones you want, and you basically tick it and it adds it to your daily total. You can put in your calories it basically takes information for you if you want to lose weight, gain muscle, stay the same, and it gives you a calorie range to target. And then basically each food you add takes the calorie total off. You can add to each meal, and then by the end of the day, you know if you're plus or minus, on track, off track, etc. The really good thing about this is that, particularly on the app as well, the app has got a lot better in recent times. They've got a barcode scanner, which is even easier. So on the app, you just press the barcode scanner, hold it up to the food. So if you're out eating on the go and you've got a sandwich, maybe a pre-packet sandwich and a can of Coke, shouldn't be can of Coke, but you know what I mean. And then basically you scan it, and it pops up immediately into your feed as long as it's recognized. Most are super easy. It then also has another function which not a lot of people tend to use. I tend to use this a lot with my clients because this is what we do a lot of our education on, is the macronutrients, so the fats, the proteins, the carbohydrates, the correct balance for that individual based on how active they are. So everybody needs the right balance based on them as an individual. And then all we do is when you've completed a food diary, you go back over and you basically click on the nutrition button, and then you can bring up the calories, and you can do a couple of things, but you can bring up the calories as a pie chart, and you can see where most of your calories went on what meals. Was it in snacks? Was it in breakfast? Was it in lunch? Was it in dinner, etc.? But the more important one is the macronutrients, and if you look at the macronutrients, again, it gives you a pie chart of the carbs, the fats, and the proteins, and then actually you can start to get an idea of what your balance looks like in your day. So if you're trying to build muscle and you need more protein, and you're looking at your protein and your fat intake, maybe trying to keep your carbohydrate intake down a little bit, you can start to see how the balance of your food is going very visually, very quickly. And if it doesn't look right, you can then go back and look at your food diary yourself and go, okay, maybe a little bit more here, maybe a little bit less there, maybe add something in here, and you can start to tweak it. If you're someone who's very sedentary at work, you don't really need as many carbohydrates as, say, somebody who's a plasterer who's really physically active all day. They need a good amount of carbohydrate. They need a good amount of protein as well to repair those muscles. And also that means that their calorie requirement and their carbohydrate requirement is going to be completely different to, say, yourself who's working maybe 8 hours, 10 hours in a chair, very little activity in between. You guys, you need less carbohydrate, a little bit more protein, potentially a little bit more fat if you function well on that. But this is all being done within that calorie range that has been set. So, you can play about with the macronutrients, but ultimately the calories need to be right for what your goal is. So, without going on a massive tangent, because I'll actually start coaching the entire podcast, and I don't want to do that. But this is a really, really good app. It's super popular. Most people know it. If you haven't tried it, go check it out today. MyFitnessPal, 50 million downloads, super popular, free to download, but don't bother with a premium unless you really, really want to. Lots of recipes available. Other functionalities include the fact you can add your own recipes. You can have a recipe archive. So if you make Mum's famous lasagna once a week, you can basically upload, takes a little while, you can upload all of the ingredients for Mum's famous lasagna, save it in your recipe book, and then if you make that every single week, you just go back and click Mum's famous lasagna, one portion, boom, it's in, it's done. Really, really simple. The other thing that's quite nice about it, quite often if you use a URL for a particular website and a particular recipe, or if you have a recipe from a recipe book, I use a lot of hairy dieters with my clients because they're simple recipes, people enjoy them, they're real food, they're a lot healthier, and actually if you put in what it is and what book it came from, quite often somebody will have uploaded, or it will find it in its recipe reserve and it will pull it up, and you don't even have to enter it in, you just have to put the serving size in. So MyFitnessPal, super easy. Next up we have number 2, we have Chronometer. So Chronometer, 50,000 downloads on Android. Other services are available, but why would you want to bother? Android's cool. I can just hear the door closing as all of the Apple people walk out in disgust, or actually just say no, click it off. He doesn't have an Apple. He's on Windows. Anyway, Chronometer. Chronometer is basically the same as MyFitnessPal, but with a few distinct differences. Its platform is smaller, okay, so its functionality perhaps not quite so good as MyFitnessPal. Obviously, MyFitnessPal, a lot of money behind it from Under Armour. It's the biggest one in the market right now. But Chronometer has a few other things that make it a little bit different. So you can use it online on your desktop. You can also use it on your app as well, which is cool. But Chronometer tends to look a lot more at the micronutrients. It tends to look more at the vitamins in the specific foods that you're eating as well. So if you're trying to be a little bit more to the point on what you're eating, Chronometer can be quite an interesting one. Some people prefer its database. Some people prefer the functionality of Chronometer. It's a little bit of a preference. I tried it for a while. I preferred MyFitnessPal, but that's just because I think I've become just a little bit used to it by now. But Chronometer, worth checking out as well. Now, one of the other ones I'd like to use with clients quite often is an app called Meal Planner. Okay, lots of different ones available. This one is just called straight up Meal Planner. 100,000 downloads on Android, so reasonably popular. Not as popular as the previous two. More popular than Chronometer, but not as popular as MyFitnessPal. And this app, it could be easy to overlook this app's benefits because of its simplicity. But remember, the simple things in life are quite often the very best. Meal Planner is simple. It gives you a 7-day week on your screen, on the app, and you go on to each day, and it brings it up as a day, and you look at it, and you basically add in what you're having for breakfast, what you're having for snacks, what you're having for lunch, what you're having for dinner, and then you repeat for the next few days. You can buy a premium version where you can basically populate your list and then create a shopping list. I've not done that. I don't know any clients that have. I don't really think it will be very beneficial, to be perfectly honest. But what it does do is it means that you've got on your phone something very simple. That means you know what's coming up, what meals you've got. You can say you're on the train on the way home, and you can go, okay, what am I having for dinner tonight? Cool. What am I having for breakfast tomorrow? Oh, yep, I need to prep that while I'm cooking my dinner tonight. Oh, hang on a minute, I haven't got broccoli for tonight's dinner. I can stop at the shop as I walk home, or I haven't got chicken for tomorrow night's dinner and I want to put that in the slow cooker. Okay, I better get that on the way home as well. Or, and it just means that you've got in one simple place, and it probably takes you like 5 minutes to fill in a week's meals and snacks and things. Now, I know clients, they don't always fill in the whole thing. Quite often it's the evening meal that catches them out. Sometimes it's the snacks, and they will just fill in the specific thing that they struggle with the most. Some fill in the whole thing, and obviously they find that really useful. We do it the old-fashioned way, so we write it all on. We write our shopping list out, but we write the meals we want first. We go into a weekly shop based on that, and then we stick the meal planner, quite often just on the back of an old envelope, stick it on the fridge, and then we know what meals are coming up. And it's simple, but it's really effective, because once you get into the week and your mind is on hundreds of things, it's on work, it's all the different things that are going on, you just want something simple. You don't want to have to think about food. You want to go, yep, we thought about that at the weekend. We're having we're having a lentil stew tonight, lentil sweet potato stew. Cool, right, I'll get the recipe, I'm going to start making it. Not open the fridge, looking, go, what do I make tonight? Oh god, yeah, there's lots of ingredients. Oh, I don't know, what do you want? No, do you want that? No, I don't really fancy that. Oh, should we have that? Oh, should we get a takeaway? Oh, we haven't really got any food in. And before you know it, you're having a takeaway. You're really disappointed with yourself. You feel disappointed because you've maybe missed your train and you got home late, you're not eating what you wanted to. Writing it down, super simple, adds a little bit of time, like 5-10 minutes to your week. I'm sure you can do that sat on the train on the way to work or on the way home, and it just means you can open up your app, simple as that, and go, right, okay, I'm on this week. And you can also fill in next week and go, oh, I really enjoyed that dinner, I might have that next week. Easy, super simple. That's meal planner. One more in the food category. Well, this one kind of crosses several, but one more. This one is called Nudge Coach. Nudge Coach. Nudge. Nudge Coach. 10,000 downloads. So it's probably the smallest one on this list. But it's a great little app. It's super simple. So basically, Nudge app gives you but it's really clever. So it will pair with all of your other apps, whether it be like MyFitnessPal, Garmin, Fitbit, and it basically, without having to do anything, you don't have to do anything, you just switch it on. It pulls all of that information into one place, and after 7 days, it gives you a score based on how you're doing in terms of your food, how you're doing in terms of your activity, how you're doing in terms of your water intake. And it has what they call buttons, and you choose which ones you want, and you just go in and you basically press the button. So for example, say I'm trying to get my water intake up, I choose the water button, I go into Nudge Coach and I click it and say, right, I've had 2 glasses of water today. Boom, simple as that. I just press it twice, it says 2, done. Then I go in and say, okay, I've had 2 sweets today. 2 sweets, and I've had three salty foods, boom, and it just updates on its own. And that's it. And then once at the end of the day, it will then add all of that information to how many steps you've done. If it's recording that on your Fitbit or on your Garmin, it will also record how much exercise you've done if it's recording that on your Garmin or on your Fitbit, and it will pull all of that information. And then after 7 days, it gives you a score. The idea is to get the score up, and it's done in like red, amber, and green, so you kind of see where you are. You get a number, and the idea is over a month you try and get that number up and try and work on those areas that you're struggling. Super simple. It requires going in and out maybe a little bit more than perhaps MyFitnessPal, depending on how you look at it, but there's no finding anything in databases or anything. It is literally just pressing a button. Remembering it to do it can sometimes be a bit of a problem, but this is a cool little app. Check it out if you like simplicity in your life. You don't want to know the minutiae of every single food that you're eating, but you just know that I shouldn't be eating as many crisps, so if I have to go and press a button every time I eat crisps and know how many I've eaten in the day, that's going to give me a kick up the bum. Nudge Coach is the one for you. Go check it out. Very, very cool. Right. Oh, blimey, we're going to have to wrap up. I am definitely going on a bit today. Fitness. Okay. So we're just gonna gloss over Fitbit and Garmin very quickly. Fitbits, Garmin's, whatever it is, your Apple Health, Apple Watch, whatever it is that is your chosen health watch. All of those have their own applications, but they're specific to those users. They're all very good. They all have great functionality. Particularly, I use Garmin. I love it. I used to like the Fitbit one when I had a Fitbit for a little while. So you are all aware of those. If you haven't, then go do some research. Not really relevant here today. These are the ones that are available to everybody, and we're only really talking about 2. We're going to talk about the big one first, Strava. Now, a lot of you listening to this will be very, very aware of Strava because there's been over 10 million downloads, and some of you won't. So I'm going to tell you all about it. Strava can be used for cycling, used for running, and basically it lets you use, very similar to like Google Maps, it will record your run, so you can use like a Garmin or something like that to download it, and then you basically, quite often now they pair anyway if you enable the apps, or you have to send it across. But basically it records your run, records your bike ride, and then you've got all of the information on there. You can make friends with other people, so it's a social network in its own right anyway, to be honest. But there's leaderboards and things on there. You can comment on your friends' run, see how they've done, give them kudos if you want to, and kind of see what they're up to. They can see what you're up to, but it also has its own unique functionality in as much as Strava is famous for its segments, so you can look around the local area and you can find segments. So if you're on your bike and you know between, like, let's say for example, popular ones where I was at home would be, say, maybe from Worthing Pier down to George V, which is one of the roads further down. There's like this stretch of maybe, I don't know, half a mile. Everyone on their bikes, they'd go past the pier. This is known as a segment, and then they would absolutely tank it down the road, for example. So good examples. Also, you can do this when you're running. There will be certain stretches of run routes, maybe around parks and things you're doing that people have picked out that they like, and you can go and do the segments, and you can go and push as hard as you want, try and get on the leaderboard, and then you get points for being on the leaderboard, and then everybody obviously tries to beat each other's score. The other thing that Strava's quite famous for is people creating patterns in the map. So there's a few people out there that go out on their bikes and they ride like 60-70 miles, and they meticulously plan, and you should give this a Google because it's quite fun. They meticulously plan the route on the map where to cycle, so that their little cursor that follows them and draws the map for them creates the shape of, like, I don't know, a butterfly or a donkey or something random. So some of them are quite cool. Some of them really are quite cool. So that's worth a Google. So Strava, super popular. Also, one important caveat, important safety notice, be careful, don't be a donut, because there are also lots of reports of people getting very, very seriously injured, and I haven't checked this, but from memory, I do think there have been several deaths as well. People doing segments and maybe doing some silly things to beat times and coming off the worst. So be careful. It's meant to be fun. It's meant to get you active. But the reason Strava's popular is because it creates community and it encourages you to be a little bit competitive with each other. And so actually that gets you doing things. So Strava, really, really good fun. Okay, next one. This was not one that I'm going to recommend, but this came up when I was doing some research to kind of refresh my memory, see what else was out there. Pokemon Go. Yes, Pokemon Go. Of all of the ones that we've looked at on here, Pokemon Go has the highest number of downloads at over 100 million on Android alone. Now, I guess Pokemon Go made it onto this list just because when I was looking through doing my research, it kept popping up. And the reason for that is gets you walking, doesn't it? You know, whether you're looking for your Charizard, your Pikachu, or your no, they're probably the only two I know. Charizard, Pokemon. No, I haven't got any more. No, it's literally just those two, and even the third one was just the name of what they are. So Pokemon Go. It has been, I guess, it has been popular in terms of health because it's got people out walking. I mean, you could argue that it's not the healthiest thing if you're getting encouraged into pubs and coffee shops and different places because they're Pokestops to go and find your monster to fight. And I guess you could argue it's maybe not that safe if you're walking out in front of cars or falling down manhole covers. But Pokemon Go, an unusual one to this list. Do I recommend you download it? Probably not. I'm not going to say it's a problem if you do, but there we go. But Pokemon Go makes its way onto the list just because of the sheer number of downloads, and that's a lot of people. Trust me, that's a lot of gamers out walking that would genuinely not be out walking otherwise. So I think that's worth a mention. Well done. well done, Nintendo. Okay. This one's going to be a little bit unusual, and then we're going to move on to the last one of the day, which is performance. And oh my god, this podcast is going on. I've got my timer going, it's flashing at me. I'm going to wrap up. Okay, one more one that can be very, very useful, and this goes across the board, whether it's fitness, diet, health, lifestyle, and that is WhatsApp. Now, not a traditional member of this list, you might think, but WhatsApp can be really powerful. If you've got a group of friends, different ends of the country, you're all trying to lose weight for a wedding, you're all trying to get fit for a marathon, a WhatsApp group can be really powerful. You can encourage each other, you can send each other photos, here's my dinner, here's a photo from this week's long run, when someone's struggling, you can support them, and it's also a closed environment because it can only have those people in it that are kind of going to support you or are doing the event or, trying to lose weight together. WhatsApp groups are a really, really smart way forward. Easy to communicate, fun to do, and actually they add that extra support network to get you going. So WhatsApp groups for health and fitness goals, Nice, smart little addition. And again, super easy, super free, and pretty much everybody has got it. Right, okay, moving on to performance, the very last one on the list. This is one that I use, and I'm sure not many of you have heard of this one because there's only 1,000 downloads, but it's technically still a little bit niche in its concepts for most people, but it's something I've been on my radar for quite some time now. And this app is called HRV4 Training. HRV4 Training. And this app basically looks at heart rate variability. And unfortunately, we're a very long way into this podcast and I can't explain too much about this right now. But heart rate variability, basically what it does is this app's going to cost you, I think it's nearly 15 to 20 pounds. Okay, so think about this one. But basically, it takes a scan of your finger and it takes your heart rate reading. And I've compared this with my Garmin and it's pretty accurate. So I'm pretty pedantic over this because I paid for this app. And basically, every morning when you first wake up, you let it scan your finger, it takes your heart rate, and it gives you a reading based on how well you've rested, how your heart rate is, and basically it gives you a score based on how hard you can train for that day. I will do another podcast and I'll do a blog on heart rate variability. It's a really interesting area. It's kind of the more performance end of things, but it is an area of the science and it's an area of sport that kind of everything is moving towards. You're going to start hearing about it. I've been reading about it now probably for the last 18 months to 2 years, maybe a little bit longer, but it's becoming much more mainstream, and I would guess in the next 12 to 18 months, more and more sports people in the general population are going to start hearing about this. Heart rate, HRV4 Training, heart rate variability, and it basically looks at how rested you are, how well recovered you are, how able you are to train, how hard you should train, and basically by taking this score, once you've been doing it for a week to 10 days and longer, it gives you a score, and based on that score you can then go and train based on how hard it's basically on how hard it's telling you. So that is our list. That is our podcast. So we've got MyFitnessPal, Chronometer, Nudge Coach, Meal Planner, Strava, Pokemon Go, Fitbits and Garmin's, obviously, WhatsApp groups for help and support, and finally HRV for training, heart rate variability. That is definitely a more niche one. That is not for everybody. There's no point. But if you're someone that's maybe doing marathon training, triathlon training, that might be something to consider. But pop me an email, andy@fundamentallyfit.co.uk if you want some more information, and I shall do a blog or another podcast on that quite soon and actually go into some detail. Oh, blimey, straight off in one. That doesn't always happen. Good, right. So that's the end of the podcast. Thank you for listening to me waffle on. I hope you found it useful. Some of my favourite apps, some that my clients get really, really good results with, and Pokemon Go was in there as well. Who knew? Thank you to Google for letting us know how many cupcakes we've been burning. Sorry that it's annoyed lots of people, but please let us know what you think. I do find this one interesting, so I would love your feedback. Head over to Facebook, give us a thumbs up, give us a like, subscribe if you're watching over on YouTube. Hello, I'm waving, and I'll look forward to seeing you in episode number 18 next week. Have a fantastic day, have a fantastic weekend, have a fantastic evening. Yes, see you next time. Bye bye.